We're WXRT in Chicago, and I'm Terri Hemmert. Years ago, I made a phone call that I'll never forget because I was reading in Time Out magazine, back when it was a magazine and not just a website, but it was an article about what was going on in Chicago with so many neighborhoods like war zones. And you know, if you don't live in a neighborhood like that, you think, wonder what's going on, and you'd know better than to just go check it out for yourself. So I heard about this group called R.A.G.E, and I thought, well, I'll call the executive director and see if I can get her in here to talk to us about what's going on. And she was not being driven around by a limousine with a driver. She was sitting there working, answering the phone herself, and busy because she had a lot to do. She's still doing it. In fact, she's come back a few other times, and this is part of an ongoing conversation from people that live in two totally different neighborhoods in the city of Chicago, but we still live in the same city, and these kids that are in the city are our kids. So I'm very happy to have her back. Please welcome Asiaha Butler, who's the executive director of R.A.G.E, which stands for the Resident Association of Greater Englewood. And you are celebrating your 10th anniversary this year.
This is
10 years. And you're one of the co-founders, so you've been with them forever.
Yes, I'm one of the co-founders and I would say the conductor of the train. I've kept the train moving.
Yeah.
We started with 13 co-founders back in 2010, and we have about a little shy over 300 members today.
Wow.
So, yep.
That's amazing. And you're not burned out?
No.
You look still like you care.
No,
and I love your shirt.
Out.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, this is one of our members. He has a store called ENGLE Branding. It's right by 63rd and Ashland. And this one says, "Englewood girls don't cry."
I love it. I love it. Well, I've heard about that store. Let's start there because last time I talked to you, it's been 3 years, we figured out, that you were talking about how important it was. Like sometimes people see, Starbucks, Whole Foods.
Yeah.
You say, but now we're getting green vegetables. Now we have a place to congregate, a safe place where neighbors can get to know each other. And I heard about this store where they're trying to do the same thing. They're not just selling you clothes, but it's a community center in a way.
Well, what's really interesting and great about the people in Englewood is their love for the community. And because we're constantly under attack, in the media, and we cherish our magical moments and our talent. And so one of the members, which is Corey Luckett, he had this idea to do all these Englewood apparel that all exude pride and love and respect for our community, and the name of the store is Englewood Branding. And again, all of our work has been rooted in trying to rebrand our community, or at least lift the cloud that many people in our community feel because they're inundated with so much negative press about our area. So he's one of many R.A.G.E members who have had a dream, had a vision, had love for Englewood, and just really went all the way out to open up his store.
And that's interesting because you have something in common with him, that you weren't a social worker.
Yeah.
You weren't sent by the government or a big corporation to come in and fix Englewood. You lived there. And you were just getting ready to move.
Yeah.
And I love that moment for people that don't know that story about looking out the window of your house.
Yeah, it's so crazy that Aspen, I've been an Aspen fellow, and one of the David Brooks has been following my work as a weaver.
Yes.
And they did this phenomenal video about that story, about the turning point in my life when I felt that I just couldn't take it anymore on my block. And my block was just filled with crime and just not neighborly. I would say not neighborly.
Yeah, sure.
And I had issues there, and I was fearful.
Oh, yeah.
And so my mental was to just get away, at that time. And then something did hit me where I looked across the street at those kids in that vacant lot. And I said, I have to stay because they're not, this is not something they chose to be a part of. Why not show them another model of people? Why not show them a husband and a wife? Someone's raising their children, and also somebody who also, later on fast forward to today, got involved in her community. It started on my block first, and then it expanded to get more people who thought the same way I did to take action on their blocks too.
And there is a business component too,
Yes.
because you understand in a way that maybe other people don't, because you work in real estate.
Yeah.
So you have an understanding about
Yeah.
how blocks get to the way they are and
Yeah.
how you can turn that around.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of the work you're doing is to try to raise awareness about Englewood,
Yeah.
not just from the outside looking in, but the people living there, and to take pride and ownership
Yeah.
and reclaim that community.
Yeah, Terry, I say all the time that my work has been rooted in, and I coined the phrase, community development of the mind. You can't really develop a community or build anything new if the mind hasn't been shifted. And so my work was around building a culture of Englewood that was aligned with peace and harmony and love, the complete opposite of what people think about Englewood. And then how do you get all those forces to constantly be in communication with each other, doing work to uplift the community? And then how do we model this enough that people say, whoa, I want to be a part of this too, whatever this is, whatever this movement is. And so that has to continue to be a thread of our work. But 10 years later, we're now saying we built a really strong culture. A lot of folks, you can't, it's not just me anymore saying Englewood is great. It's an army of us who defend our community. And now we're just moving forward to brick and mortar type of projects. I became a developer a couple of years ago to develop some of the homes in the community, to renovate them. We're working on a huge project at the 63rd Street corridor in partnership with 4 other organizations in the community. And I definitely have to give you the story on that, because that was the pivotal moment when I said, this work isn't quick. It takes time, it's spiritual, it's cultural, it's psychological. And then you start looking at the tangible and physical assets in the community and think about how do you revive those. And that's like where we are now, which has been a beautiful journey.
Well, I was thinking of you last night in my class at Columbia College, because we were talking about different genres in the 70s, and we were on soul music of the 70s. And I was telling them about the Black Pride movement and about how some people were intimidated by that, like they are Black Lives Matter.
True.
They say, well, what about white lives?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you were getting shot in the back every day, we would do White Lives Matter. I'd wear a T-shirt saying that too. And same with Black Pride. It wasn't Black dominance. It wasn't like we're going to, even Black Power wasn't about we're going to take over and then do to you what you did to us. It was just about establishing a sense of pride and power that we all take, or a lot of us take for granted.
I mean, when you have a body of people who have the policies in America and the things in America, the system in America has been built to shun these people out.
Yeah.
Their mentality and psychological warfare that has happened is difficult. To raise your fist up and wear, which we did on Saturday, wear black and green and have Black Pride, it is no knock to no other ethnic group. It is because we've been absolutely humiliated and just done so unjustly in America. And so it's very similar to the movement in Englewood. Englewood is a byproduct of exactly what happens to Black folks in concentrated areas of poverty. And what we see riding around Englewood is the system. This isn't people who just said, I just want to lose my house. It was a system in place where people had, fraudulent mortgages, people were targeted. Then it was a system where fast demolitions happened. So then you have all these vacant lots. It was a system where our schools closed. I mean, so...
And redlining.
Redlining.
White flight,
it goes
all that
on
stuff.
and on and on. And then just like with the Black Power movement and with African Americans today, we still rise, right? There's still a beacon of hope. Something happens where we still see a light, even in so much darkness. And I think that's been the beauty of it, because we can't fight the system, unfortunately. I know I don't have the energy to fight it, but I can build new systems in my community, and we can shift our mindsets to not feel like we are underneath the system's ram, that we can't succeed and still move forward.
Sure. Well, one of the things I tell the kids, my generation, because I'm an old fart and I'm a baby boomer, we're going to change the world. We get out of college, we're going to change the world. And they found out how hard that was.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just gave up and said, okay. Some people hung in there, but my motto is change the things you can.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
A lot of it starts local, which is exactly what you've done.
Does.
And change things that you do have power over. That you realized you have a lot of power as an intelligent woman living in this neighborhood. Instead of running away, you use your gifts to enable people. Like, one of the things I love about your philosophy is looking out for that C student.
Yeah,
if you could explain that, I think that's so important. And every neighborhood could learn from that. So
I mean, my philosophy has always been, and when you think about the schools, you have this small number of A students, the scholars. And then you have a small number of F students who terrorize the school and everybody's afraid of. Yeah. But then you have a mass amount of C students. I mean, that's the majority. That's really the average. Sure. And usually no attention or resources are really given to them because they're getting by. But a lot of attention and resources are given to those F students, which in our city are considered the ones who are messing with people on the red line, or the ones who are, beating up old ladies, just doing demonic things, things that are just far too gone. But resources and news and media is focused on that group. And then you have this whole remarkable group of C students who are doing magical things, who are finding their talents, who are part of the solution, and no one hears that voice. And so R.A.G.E has always been like, hey, C students, we love our A students and we will work with our F students if we have to, but because it does take all of us. But at the end of the day, the large amount are really those folks with that who know they want better for their community, maybe not sure how to get it. They know that the majority of our community is not walking around with bulletproof vests, and they know that, when it's hot outside, that people on their blocks talk to each other. Those are the people who R.A.G.E always attracts and always figure out platforms for them to really express whatever they're doing in their community.
And these kids are I love the kids in the middle too. I really, I look out for them because a lot of times they get overlooked because they're not college material. So you just throw them out like they're, but those are the kids that want to have something to do and want to be part of something. And you are there with R.A.G.E to give them some focus. And I love the attitude that you go block by block. Explain that, because sometimes I think we look at a whole neighborhood and we just are full of despair. We don't see any potential. But you, again, change the things you can. You bring it down to block by block.
Very micro. So the city, is, we're divided into neighborhoods, but when you go into those neighborhoods, every block has its own characteristics.
Sure.
And so we know in Englewood is some blocks that, they're probably considered dangerous blocks, or either they had a reputation of being dangerous. But for the most part, in a 6 miles radius, all the blocks are not like that. There's beautiful homes on many of those blocks. There are block clubs on many of those blocks. There are R.A.G.E leaders on those blocks. And those are the ones that you want to tap into, because those are the ones that if I have 300 members, they all are not in Englewood. But just say if they all were in Englewood and they just did enough for their block, that's 300 blocks that can impact the whole entire community. And so I've never have looked at the work as like, oh God, this large community, I have to try to change the whole entire community. No, but if it's trickles of just hope and love on a few of these blocks, it will be contagious. And that's what I've seen in the last
people see that and they want to live like that too. You set an example, So and again, that pride issue, take pride in the neighborhood.
So I don't know if I was on your show when I did rebranding campaign around the billboards. So I used the photographer Tonika Johnson, who everybody knows. Well, I won't say everybody knows Tonika Johnson, but she's one of our founders, but she's extremely popular, especially on the art scene. You have to have her on your show because she has an exhibit called Folded Maps that looks at
I've heard interviews. Explain that though. That's really
Folded
fascinating.
Map is looking at the same address on the north side and the south side, and looking at the social injustice and disparities of our neighborhood.
Like, for example, 300 South Ashland, 3,000, or
I'll give you a better one because this is one of the Folded Map places: 6900 South Ashland, 6900 North Ashland.
There you go. So
striking difference.
So define those two neighborhoods.
So these are, and so what she did, she went further. She actually talk to people at residential places just to hear, their stories and their amenities they have in their
She's
community.
Brilliant, yeah.
And then what happened in Englewood. So Englewood was the first one because that's where she's from.
Okay.
So with that, with her work, and she also has done photography of everyday people in the community. And so we did a billboard campaign, Englewood Rising, back in 2018. That uplifted all these photos of hers that she had. I
should have known you had something to do with that.
Because we didn't do a press release. We didn't tell. We just
no, but I heard about it. It's great.
Strategically popped up in the community.
And doesn't she get people to talk to each other?
Yeah,
too,
she does.
That's amazing.
Yes. So the Englewood Rising campaign, again, going back to a cultural shift, a movement, a psychological, spiritual awakening, has basically landed us to be finalists for a $10 million prize with the Pritzker and Tauber Foundation. So it's about 4 of us in the group. We have a launch ceremony coming up.
Okay. Tell us about it.
Yeah. We have a launch ceremony coming up, but basically the work of the Inner City Muslim Action Network, Iman, of R.A.G.E, of Teamwork Englewood, and then E.G. Woods. We're Englewood Rising together. So basically we took the
strength in numbers.
We came together and we submitted a proposal for this competition for $10 million. And 80 people or 80 groups submitted a proposal. And only 6 of us are finalists. And Englewood is one. And our location that we're focused on is 6030 Racine. If you think about 6030, a lot of things happen at 6030 Halsted with the Whole Foods and the Starbucks. But 6030 Racine is still this family-friendly corridor that has very limited activities. But we have a park that is there. We have a vacant school that is there. We have land that's available for new housing. We have an abandoned CTA train that they closed in Englewood 25 years ago. So we use this collaboration to really shed light on this corridor. Again, thinking about if we could put a bright light at 6030 Racine, how could that continue to go northwest as well as, east-south, everywhere, starting somewhere. So one of the projects, one of the phases is a fresh market co-op where individuals will sell fresh markets and really taking the idea of the corner store to uplift it in a way and almost, I would say, trick out the corner store to be more beneficial to community.
Right.
Right now, there's tension with our corner stores. There's tension with our corner store owners who are not African American. And so Iman has an inroad to the Pakistani area, the Pakistani groups who own many of the gas stations, the stores, the liquor stores, the corner stores. And we really are trying to break that tension through just an innovative project that will really be catalytic for Englewood. Even if we don't get the Chicago prize money, the $10 million, we're moving forward with the project because we know that this is a $100 million project that needs to happen in our community.
Sure.
And it's driven by the people on the ground.
And you bring up a really good point, too, because, again, it's like you were at my class last night, I tell you, because we were talking about the what they called the race riots, the late 60s, early 70s, and especially the one in Watts, because I showed him the clip of the Staples singers when they played at Watts Stacks, that big festival. And people wondered, why would you burn down your own neighborhood? But these are people that live in neighborhoods where they have some ownership, and they don't understand that different ethnic groups are in there, maybe ripping them off or whatever, and there's bad blood there. So that's why they're burning down the corner store. And then how to rebuild a neighborhood like Watts and bring the people together with music, starting with music and taking it, Black is Beautiful and all that. And that's still going on. We still need to address that, but that's what you're doing. But tell us about a lot of, people look at Englewood and they say, well, how could this happen? But there are a million reasons that a neighborhood goes downhill. And one of them is abandonment of sources of jobs, like factories and things like that. And how do you bring that back? And how do you use the infrastructure you already have, like the abandoned schools and the empty lots? How do you maximize
you have
that?
to really, there's still assets, and even when you think about what happened in Englewood, this is probably about 40 years of disinvestment to this community. I mean, systematically what happens is that white flight happens.
Yes, right.
And then resources are poured out of a community. And then eventually poor people are targeted to move into that community. When you don't
can
have
I ask you a question right there and then come back? Like when they tore down all the high-rises, where did people go? And then where did the gang members go and establish turf? And you wonder why people are shooting each other below.
Well, they come to Englewood a lot of times. And we also have a huge returning citizen population, folks who get out of jail. But, we have all that in this mix. And so we know that this is like decades, and whatever happens in a community won't happen overnight. But for us, I've always, just like my vacant lot, I looked at the vacant lot and said, how could this be a space for peace? I had a number of shootings on my block. And so instead of me, they were trying to rob us, going to my daughter's house. And so my thing is, instead of running from this vacant space, how do I reclaim this vacant space and do the opposite and make it a place of healing? And so when I did it, I encourage others to do the same thing. And for this particular project, for the Go Green on Racine project, we actually want to build affordable housing because, again, that's a bit of my background is housing, and also being a developer, and want it done in a way that's still beneficial to the people in our community. We can't advocate for that green line to open up if we don't show that density. And so our school, the school that we're looking at, which is Wood School on 62nd and Racine, my little brother graduated from there. It means a lot to us. It's a very personal and very spiritual journey, and it couldn't have happened at not an opportune time, just to highlight, if nothing else, highlight our work. If the Pritzker and Tauber Foundation, if that's all we got was a spotlight for our work, I would be grateful for that. But of course, the 10 million would be.
You wouldn't say no.
I wouldn't say no to that. But but so it's an intense process because it is competition. We have until March, the end of March, to submit our final proposal. We do think that we are leveraging a lot of great folks around us, and we have to infuse the arts and the music and everything else that really, I just always think about that other neighborhoods have, and we deserve that too.
Absolutely.
When Tonika was doing the fotomat project, the complaints were, it's too many ethnic restaurants, right? On the north side. It's just too many options. Where with us, we have no options.
No options, yeah.
And I always ride, and I tell people too, and I mean, they can see if they want to, I think they know, and our mayor knows, and people know, and people are waking up to the huge disparity in our communities. But I go to the north side for a massage, and because of course I don't have a place to get a massage in my community, I just got a member who started doing massages in Englewood. Thank God that I have to start going to. But every time I do it, I take Halsted down just to remind myself of of the sparing differences of the north side. And when you start seeing the depletion of resources right after you pass about Bridgeport and Canaryville, and then from 47 on back to Englewood, it's a ghost town. And when you think about the north side retail, I mean, it's a Trader Joe's, a Whole Foods, a Aldi's. I mean, like,
everywhere. And there's an L stop.
And so for us, we always have to know, unfortunately, this was a system that we are a part of, and it's unfortunate. But if we could shed light and demand equity in a way through an innovative project, we could do that too.
Well, now that you have a mayor who looks more like you than the last few, are you making any progress there with City Hall?
Well, I was on the Good Governance Committee for the mayor, and I did a memo around how the tax increment financing work is done. I feel like I think it's definitely some traction with City Hall. I think this mayor and everyone who's or her team are just can't believe the striking disparities of the South and West Side in comparison to anywhere else. And I think, and I said it with Rom, any mayor that can really infuse authentic community development and community like Englewood will go out as a legend. And you have to do it right though, because if we've been doing the work and having our sleeves rolled up for the last 10 years or so, don't dismiss that work and start over. Really think about, learn from what we're doing. We have quality of life plans. We have green and healthy neighborhood plans. We don't need another plan. We need action and investments and private and partner and public partnerships and resources to really push these really remarkable visions forward and to make sure that our community thrives just like anywhere else of the 77 neighborhoods in Chicago.
Right. How do you do all this, and you've been doing this for 10 years, and not burn out? Or do you have those days?
I have overwhelming days, but I'm a huge proponent of self-care and balance. And so
massages.
I do. I do my massages. Right now I'm actually doing a 10-day detox.
Wow.
So I'm doing all raw food and juicing, which I've never done before. So I figure out different ways. I travel, I go out of town. Sometimes just lunch with my mom is balancing. So I just make sure that, because even though I live and work on the same block, I literally walk across the street to work because I redid an apartment of mine and made it our office.
Oh, okay.
So it's all there on, on my block. But I do find firewalls that I just, get on the couch and sometimes watch Netflix and documentaries and,
You're entitled,
eat whatever I want that day. So I exercise like daily. So I just figure out ways that I balance it out. And I think because it's so driven in the spiritual realm that I don't physically get tired. It's like the spirit inside of me just moves. And if I ever feel myself that it's getting overwhelming, then I just stop and become aware and figure out how do I do some self-care activities to make sure I balance myself back out.
Well, you're certainly an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you.
And I've got to wrap it up, but I want to ask you the same thing I asked you, like, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago I first met you. But, we all live in this Chicago, but I know from volunteer work I've done, that there are concerns, I don't want to be that white person on a white horse coming in the neighborhood fixing all your problems and all that crap,
Right.
But I have driven down streets where I see banners like a gun-free zone and know that that's wishful thinking more than anything else. But what can people of goodwill in the city do without coming in and trying to mess everything up for you? What can we do to support you?
One thing that I've noticed that, is the difference with Black-led organizations and white-led organizations is the networks. And so sometimes if you hear something that we're doing or look us up and research us, sometimes the connections that you guys have, and it's not necessarily just to money, but if you hear us talking about transit-oriented development, maybe somebody from CTA is on the phone that says, I'm going to contact that group and have a conversation with them. Or maybe you're in the office right now listening to it and you're like, we can help out in this way, or at least connect them with A, B, and C. So I'm really into relationship equity. So I think like that's something sometimes we lack in our community is those connections.
Yeah, those networks are very important.
Yeah, those networks are powerful. Anything to get the story out sometimes is also enough. You know, being on a show like this with listeners who don't typically hear from this side of town, right?
Exactly.
You know, and so even this is doing something. And then spreading that word, like, hey, I heard something about R.A.G.E on the air, you know, and
and it's hopeful.
Doing great work. So you know, don't believe everything you hear on the news. Like, like reaffirm that. We would love more people to say, no, I hear that Englewood is rising. So please don't just go off the sidetracked, you know, view of Englewood. Just
it's
really look at the holistic view.
And it's true that Englewood girls don't cry. They get busy. They get busy and they rise up. And that's what you're doing. You're taking your neighborhood and your community and you're rising up.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
And could you give us your web address so people can check out your organization?
Yes. R.A.G.E is www.rageenglewood.org. We're all on social media on Facebook at R.A.G.E or Resident Association of Greater Englewood. Our phone number is 866-845-1032. And people can email us and contact us. And we do things. We just had a huge Black History Month celebration on Saturday. It's always opportunities for folks who don't come to the South Side to engage with a group like R.A.G.E and some of the work that we do.
Bless your heart. You really are amazing. And I hope you come back again.
I will.
And give us an update because it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it is.
Know?
It's a journey.
I mean, I do a lot of these shows and I don't call people back every year to come in. But I also get great feedback from our audience who want to actually know what's going on. And that's something else I played last night. Marvin Gaye singing What's Going On.
What's going
I said, that was 1971. I wish we could have nostalgia about that song. I wish it wasn't still as relevant now as it was then. But we'll keep working. Won't give up.
We do.
Keep on pushing, as Curtis Mayfield used to say. Keep on pushing, and you keep on pushing because you're. And I got to tell you, when I heard David Brooks talk about you on TV, I just jumped up and down. I go, I know her; she's great.
No, I'm a weaver to them, just weaving people, and I just want to say, you know, look up the hashtag Go Green on Racine. Look at the video. If you could come to the launch ceremony on Thursday at noon, please come. But this might air afterwards, but the information is there. But just look us up and spread the word.
Thank you. Asiaha Butler, you're an amazing woman. I'm proud to know you, and thank you for giving us some time in your very busy schedule, obviously. But keep hanging. And the other song is Keep On Keeping On, you know. Okay, thank you very much. And that's R.A.G.E, Resident Association of Greater Englewood. I'm Terri Hemmert. We're